And we are live.
Bam!
Welcome to episode 2 of what I've now aptly named Rude Awakening because I am Rudy and I'm awakening. So, welcome to Rude Awakening.
Yeah, and I'm guessing this is going to be probably one of your at least top two shows, isn't it? This
Absolutely. Show number 2, it's going to be in the top 2, 100%.
that's right. That's the way to do it.
And so, on this episode, I would like to introduce. Why
Brian
don't you go
Wansink.
ahead?
Yeah. Brian Wansink. So I'm originally from Iowa in the United States, and I was a professor for 30 years, and then I retired in 2019 after 30 years of doing work primarily related to the psychology behind eating behavior as a marketing professor. And I've always been interested, growing up in the bread basket of America, I've always been interested in why people eat the foods they eat, why they choose soup instead of salad, why they eat a little or a lot, what makes them like it or hate it. And it's a very practical area if you want to kind of start with a practical question and step backward. Was totally blessed and grateful for like over 30 years of doing research in that area. I've had some best-selling books in that area, and then since retiring, what I've been doing is doing some kind of hobby projects, playing like lots of music. I started a program called Making Music Fun, where we try to encourage people to volunteer to play in nursing homes. This is
Incredible.
this is young musicians. We're putting on a free school of rock this summer, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to make materials available so that other willing parents or musicians around the country, around the world, can put on similar free camps for kids that don't require the kids to pay any money, and which give kids an early win in their life about what it feels like to really feel connection with other people.
Like you're
We're music.
hoping they like pick up the music and grab an instrument and learn to jam.
Yeah. And I think, so all three of my girls were in band and orchestra and everything. And, there's always jokes about band nerds and things like that. But the thing is, the typical person you run into if your kids in a high school band or orchestra or something like that, they're they have a little more discipline, I think, on average than the average high schooler. They might be um, a little bit more dedicated in some ways, a little bit more directed in some ways. And then I think also if there's a way to get kids to continue that when they get out, whether it be to join a jam band, whether it be to I don't know, join a Amish yodeling band. I mean, anything. I think I think I think it really provides a richness and a kind of joy that they wouldn't necessarily have just surfing the web and um, watching Netflix binging.
Yeah, it's amazing. As kind of like an amateur musician myself, I get it. I started music young, and it put me on some interesting paths.
Yeah. And I think the fact is you don't have to be very good because
No,
most people aren't expecting you to be, Jimmy Page. They're just expecting you to be a fun person to hang with and maybe
yeah,
play some quarter notes.
yeah. So to start kind of like the beginning of your journey, you dropped your doctorate. You taught primarily at Cornell during this time.
Yeah, well, I started off teaching at Dartmouth for 4 years, and then I went overseas for a while. Then I taught at the University of Pennsylvania for 3 years, Illinois for 7 years, and then I was at Cornell for, oh, goodness me, maybe about 15 years or so.
Yeah, and you've mentioned before at that time you had a stint working with the administration as well, right? I mean the
Yeah.
government.
So yeah, I was so fortunate in that I'd published a kind of a popular book called Mindless Eating that looked at why people make decisions about food. And there's one agency in the government. It's got to be the smallest agency ever. Okay, it only had 42 people when I was there, and this is the agency that's tasked with promoting the dietary guidelines, and it's tasked with doing all the research related to those and things like that. And I was asked if I was holding I was giving a talk down in DC, and this the former executive director came up to me during the break and said, you're being considered for this position. Is it something that you would like to move forward? And and I was just blown away. And actually, at the time, I was chugging a diet Dr. Pepper at the time, so I'm like, I'm trying to hide it. And he said, and I said, well, can I think about it? He says, yes. He says, let's meet for breakfast tomorrow at 7 a.m. And I'm kind of think about it meant more than 11 hours. but he said, good. He says, yeah. He says, I don't want you to say anything to anybody. I said, I'd like to talk to my wife. He says, I don't want you to say anything to anybody but your wife. And so I called her in the cab on the way back and said, honey, I think something's happening that can help me change the way America eats. And she says, no nonsense wives, She goes, She goes, do we have to move? I'm like, yes. And she says, do you have to take a pay cut? And I'm like, yes. And she says, okay, I'm in. Let's hear more about it when you get back to the hotel. So I did that, and I passed all the confirmation stuff and the background check, which is not insignificant. And then I did that throughout the last half of President Bush's term.
Can you talk about the background check?
Oh yeah. This is interesting. So they said, when I met with the secretary of the USDA and his advisors, they said, here's what's going to happen. We're going to do a background check, and if everything's okay, the next call you're going to get is from me saying, when can you start? I'm like, great, okay, I'm ready. And then really it's like 4 months go by. I'm like, I don't know. But in the 4 months, what would happen is I got a call from I was up at term I had a good friend who was a girlfriend up there until she moved away. And all of a sudden I get a call from her one night, and she says, hey, this is Carol. Is everything going okay for you? I'm like, yes. Why would you ask? She says, I got a call from the FBI asking me questions about you. And I thought, oh, holy cow. The questions were kind of like, what's he like to do? What's he like? What's a warning sign that you might have seen about him? Did you ever see him act strange? I mean, the questions kind of like things like that. And I thought, wow, where'd that come from? And I made no connection at all. And then, how'd they find her? And then, like a couple months later, I was at a conference and I talked to a guy, and he was kind of a friend when I was at the University of Pennsylvania. We'd go listen to jazz down in Philly, but like the really back then unstable parts of town where they have great jazz, but you look out of place. Two middle-aged white professors look really awkwardly out of place. And he called me and says, how things going? I go, fine. And he says, people have been asking about you. I'm like, what? He says, I got a call from the FBI a month ago. They wanted to know how we knew each other and what we were doing, going to these clubs. Uh, and I think also around those clubs, there's like a lot of drug dealing and stuff like that. And what else we did other than listen to music and stuff. And really, Rudy, I had no idea that this is the sort of background checking they're doing. And the way they do this is interesting because then I subsequent to that, this is 10 years later, I had a friend who worked for the FBI, and I told him about these things. He goes, "Well, here's how they do it." He says, "They ask you, they ask, they find some people in your background you might have worked with, whatever, but then they ask those people, who are three people, other people that you know were his friends or that he hung out with, or that weren't on the same nature relationship you had." And then sometimes they'll even go to those three people and ask. And so that's what happened. They would call these places where I'd worked and they say, "Yeah, you don't play Wansink." Yeah. Well, who are three people, let's say, other than peers who he hung out with? And so they do this sort of this kind of a spider web thing, and they reach out to really unusual people. So that's how we learned about how background checks are done.
Interesting, hey?
Yeah.
So do you still have a level of security clearance?
No, I still have my diplomatic passport, and I realized that it only expired a short time ago. So it's one of those black passports.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I think it's the type that if there's terrorists on the plane that find you with the black passport, you don't get a parachute.
So you specialize, like to sum it up by saying nutrition is a broad term for you, right?
Yeah, it's
But
more like eating behavior. It's like the psychology of eating behavior. It's why do you buy some things at a grocery store, not other things? Why do you eat something and really love it one day, but the next day, you're eating with somebody else and you hate it? It's the psychology behind behavior related to food. What you buy, what you eat, how much you eat, how you evaluate it afterwards. And this has huge implications for school lunches. It has huge implications for food companies, for restaurants that want to make you come back again and again and again. It has huge applications for us as cooks. I mean, since doing this research, and people will come over for dinner parties. And my wife, she went to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, so she is an amazing cook. But just taking some of these things I've learned from doing all this research, we use it in every meal that we have at home when we have guests, and people leave kind of going, "Oh my God, that should be a Michelin restaurant,"
well,
There was so
can you share some of the
yeah,
secrets with us?
sure. But like a whole lot of things is simply just managing expectations about food. So if let's say you're going to have some sort of little shrimp appetizer, and you're sitting with somebody, and the person tastes it, and the guy goes, "Try this shrimp. Is it? How does it taste to you?" You are gonna pick up on the cues that something must be wrong, and you'll taste and you'll find something wrong with it. But if they instead say, "Try this shrimp. What do you think about it? How's it taste to you?" and they're smiling when they say it, you're going to find 40 reasons why it's great. Or even if somebody says, "Is this too salty for you?" You're gonna be so attuned to that it's going to affect everything else. So managing these expectations can be really pretty easy. If you come in and you're having dinner at in a kitchen, and there's or pardon me, in a dining room or in a kitchen, you're going to evaluate the food is tasting better. If there's a nice tablecloth, you're going to evaluate the food is tasting better. If there's candlelights, you're going to like it. If there's music, you're going to like it. And somebody says, "Hey, let me tell you what we're having for dinner tonight. Right now, we're having this asparagus, and I seasoned it in this way, and I baked it in this way. And asparagus is something I bought fresh from the country market, and blah 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 blah. And then we're going to have this and this and this. You're going to leave that place saying, 'Unbelievable! because all of a sudden you're gonna pay attention to all those things, and you're not just gonna talk about yourself the whole time,
Hmm.
or whatever you'd otherwise do. And you find that simply raising expectations, uh, uh, the taste expectations for foods in that way, it 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 almost engineers your evaluation of.
So you're saying that marketed food tastes better.
I think it has to be seen as genuine, and that's why doing some of these things in person, you know, uh, really work a lot better. That's why if it will help if a restaurant's menu said that this is whatever whatever Iowa style mushroom infused pork chop. That helps. If your waiter says that, it goes up another notch. You're like, I want it. I'm going to be looking for those mushrooms. So, and so what we do is we just do tons and tons of studies. We do them in restaurants. We do them in homes. We do them. We get a lab with hidden cameras and one-way mirrors. We bring people in. We give them all sorts of stuff. We change something. And we change the lighting. We change what was said. We change what they read. We change what they received first. And that's how we know this stuff works so well. And when it doesn't,
So were you focused more like like when you're first talking about it, I thought about like a broad number of things. Like I was thinking about like the food and the actual food itself and what makes people come back to the food. Did you study that as well?
yeah, but that was almost a secondary thing because it's pretty much the psychology of everything that dictates stuff.
Oh wow. So 80, would you say like an 80/20, a classic
Oh
pyramid
yeah,
split?
I absolutely. I think unless you are at the extreme ends, like basically, you know, cheese that is rotted, for instance, or meat that's rotten, that anything in this that isn't just horrible, 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 you, know, you can tremendously adjust somebody's evaluations based on what's happening around them, based on what you say, based on what it's compared with, based on how it looks in the paper on the plate. So I mean, here's what we did this cool study one time, and really this stuff is so stupid. We took a three course meal as I think it's scallop potatoes, and kind of a bean kind of salad, cold bean salad, and a really nice piece of meat. And we'd simply change where it was oriented. We'd either, if the plate's in front of you, we'd either have the meat right in front of you, we'd have it on the right hand side, top, or the left. Okay. And you kind of go, well, the food's not changing at all. It's just rotated around the plate. And what we found is that people, if the meat was faced toward them, they rated it as much more filling. It's the exact same as regardless of where it's at, but they rate the meal as having been more filling if it's on the right in front of you. But they rate the meal as tasting better if the meat was on the right. And
Interesting.
if it's at the top or the left,
What if they were left-handed?
we tried looking at that, and it doesn't seem to work as well for left. The front is important for
Yeah,
the
I
left.
I assumed it would orientate to the primary hand.
It does. The evaluation of left to right does, yeah. But for everybody,
Interesting.
it's in front of you, just kind of go, God, this meal's huge. It's so filling. So
That's amazing.
I know it's just so silly, some of this stuff.
So what you're telling me, like, as a quick breakdown, and it sounds obvious now that I'm going to say it, but large commercial food chains, like we all have them in our
Yeah,
towns.
yeah, 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 yeah.
They're 80% perception,
Yeah, yeah. And
like
then some
marketing and
things.
image, and they tell you what you're going to experience. And so you go there with completely loaded expectations, seeing hundreds of images of people and humans consuming their food on screen, right? And so you go there completely good. And they only, according to what you're telling me, is they only have to hit the mark like with 1/5 accuracy.
It's pretty. So we did this great. You know who Penn and Teller are, the
Yeah, the magicians.
yeah. So they did a TV show about us, and it's really neat. But one of the things we did was we brought people in, told them they're going to be having a gourmet meal. But what we did was we just bought a whole bunch of KFC, um, a whole bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken KFC meals. That's all we did. And then what we did was we would reconfigure things and redesign things and use the dishes to make, like we'd use the corn to make a corn chowder. We do stuff like this, and people are eating. They're like, "My God, there's no way you couldn't find a restaurant within 100 miles. It's as good as what you're giving us right here."
It's crazy, eh?
Yeah. It's really pretty cool. Yeah.
You just put it on a fancy plate and off you go.
Oh yeah, that's right. And you change the presentation. We did this one study where I took people who'd been business people who'd been in these big expense accounts. We gave them this pasta and as part of a dinner and asked them what they thought of it. And we said, uh, this pasta recipe comes from a generation old family recipe that's been handed down and is made with all natural ingredients and lovingly put together. And they didn't even go, oh, that's great. But
Hmm.
another group of people, we told them the exact same thing because that's exactly what's written on the back of a Chef Boyardee can of pasta.
Oh my goodness.
In both cases, that's what they're eating. Okay.
Yeah.
But in one case, we read it off a menu card, and well, I think the waiter memorized it and told it to people. In the other case, they read it off the back of a can. And the people in the second group are just incensed. It's like, yeah, believe it. You said free, but you didn't say horrible.
So if you were an evil marketer and you had to hack the system,
Yeah.
what are some of the things you would do to package a product?
Well, let's say that I wanted to make more money by reducing the food, but by reducing the food costs. Okay. One thing I changed the shape. Now, and again, food costs aren't that big of a deal in most packaged goods because it's transportation, it's the marketing, it's the whatever that is the biggest proportion of things. But if I want to be an evil person like that, I'd change the shape, and there's a number of different ways you can change the shape to make people think they're getting a lot where they're not really getting
Oh,
a lot.
you see that commonly. It's not, it's like they have a fun word for it. That's a play off of inflation, where they're changing the size of containers and reducing the volume of
Yeah,
product you're
yeah,
getting. Is that what you're
yeah,
referring to?
yeah. And it can be changing also just by changing the shape and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We did a bunch of cool studies in high end in wineries and high end bars where we changed the size, the shape of wine glasses, narrow or wide and stuff like this, and we'd give it to people and ask which wines they like better, which ones were better value because they're getting more. And just changing wine glass shapes make people kind of go, yeah. And this was a ripoff. Now that's good wine. It is a generous portion, and you kind of go, yeah, that's predictable actually,
Yeah.
even though they're the same amount. Yeah,
The classic tricks.
yeah. But the thing is, these things work because people are so gosh darn confident that they're too smart to be fooled. That so we did a cool study. If you ask people, um, what makes you overeat? Like let's say you're going to go to a movie theater and you're given popcorn. What would make you overeat? People can't go. Well, usually I'm in total control of myself. I guess if I did overeat, it would be because the food was really, really, really good, or I was really, really, really hungry. And then we would bring people in this movie theater and we'd give them free popcorn, but we'd give them these either those huge buckets of popcorn or the really huge buckets, the ones that are big, totally free. But this is stale popcorn. um, 5 days old in some cases, 14 days old in some other studies. And they'd watch the movie, they had a free popcorn, and they'd eat it, and it tastes like styrofoam pellets. It's horrible. It's semi rancid. It's horrible. But they eat it and they wince and they put it down, watch a little more of the movie, and then they go, popcorn. They try some more. And what we find that happens throughout the entire movie, and by the end of the movie, when people leave, we measure how much popcorn they've eaten, and the people with the super big containers end up eating about, I think around 40% more in some studies popcorn.
Oh,
And kind
wow.
of, and we'll say, hey, man, you ate 40% more popcorn than people who had smaller buckets. Do you think the you say, what, why was that? Was it because you're hungry? They're like, no, I wasn't hungry. I just had dinner. I just had lunch. Was it because the food tasted good? No, the food is horrible. I still can't get on my teeth. I want to go home and brush my teeth. You go, I say, well, could it have been the size of the bucket? They go, no, no, no way. No, 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 no way. No way I'd be full about the size of the bucket. But we'd say, well, then why do you think all of you people with big buckets ate so much more? People just be like,
Yeah.
and we didn't, I don't know, I'd say 1,500 of these studies, and you just never run into anybody who says, wow, I
So
can't believe I was tricked.
we've always said like in our house, and like it's always been kind of like nonchalant and not backed up. But if you use a smaller plate, you'll eat less and be satisfied more.
Yeah, and that
So
was
is that
all of
that's
our,
actually, according to what you're telling me, is that like scientifically proven, basically?
yes, that actually that is all of our research has shown that. We're the ones that kind of came up with that. We also find that there is a sweet spot that you can't go below about 9.25 inches, 9.25, 9.5 inches
Oh, you
without.
have the science of the size of the plate.
Yeah, we've changed all, and we drew it we've tried different rims and everything like that. Yeah, because what we find is that if it goes too small, people kind of go, they kind of know that something's going on, and they know that they're still hungry or that they should be hungry, so they go back and they serve more food. Most of our plates in most houses are above 11 inches, and
Yeah.
that is it's just a it's a just a it's a feeding trough at that point. And I think, and we find the effects are super huge because we do those studies and we'll do them in real environments, like all you can eat buffets, or we'll do them in homes, or we'll do them in things like this that are realistic environments. Sometimes people try to do them in like labs where there's cameras all around you, and you come in, you eat 4 days in a row, and you eat the exact same thing 4 days in a row, and they study what's going on, and they change the size of the plates or stuff. And in those cases, um, they sometimes find that it doesn't work, but I think it's because people really know they're being stared at. And they know something's going on, so they're not talking to somebody. They're not lost in the moment. They're a little too careful about what happens, and so that doesn't have as big of an impact.
Hmm.
But then we eat with our eyes and not with our stomach. And we did a cool study one time where I had a fake restaurant that was only open once a week. It serves pre-fixed meals. But one time we opened it up for lunchtime, and we gave people free soup one day, soup and sandwiches the other day, stuff like this. But what we do is we have a refillable soup bowls. And so people would either get normal soup bowls, or they get these soup bowls that had a hole in the bottom, and that had little mm, tubing that would go from the bottom of the bowl into these vats of gravity filled soup, either that were on the other side of the wall that the table's against, or in some cases right in the table. And what we found is that people were eating from a refillable soup bowl. You eat soup and it kind of goes down, it goes down. You don't realize it's refillable because it refills really slowly. But you're never going to get to the bottom unless you eat
Wait,
six
did
square.
you tell them that you refill it?
No, no, absolutely not. We just wanted to see how much people would eat if they had refillable soup bowls or not. And what we ended up finding was that people with refillable soup bowls ended up eating like 60% more soup than people with normal soup bowls. Either though neither of them got to the bottom because we would stop the study after 5 minutes if anybody was getting kind of close. But they eat 60% more. But to a person, they would not believe they had any more calories or that they're any more full than the people who eat out of normal soup bowls, even though they ate 60% more. Because in
So
their mind,
you can just trick. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah, because in their minds, they're eating a bowl of soup and they're like, well, how could I have eaten more? It's already gone.
This would be
So
hard to set up. You'd have to invest, like the bowls would have to be waiting for them when they arrived, right?
yeah, yeah. We in fact on any given day, I think the most people we could run through it was I believe 8 people.
Yeah.
We do because we do it for the first hour, and then we would about 45 minutes or so. And once they were through, we would have to clean out all the tubing and everything like that, and then the second group would come in.
And would
So
it'd be hot soup running through the tubing, right?
yeah, well, hot tomato soup, and
Yeah.
we added more spices to make it better than just tomato soup. But we tried other soups, but uh, we would one problem we tried chicken noodle one time, and it just would clog up the tube. That's right. And then tomato soup worked well because it's viscous, but also it's you can't see through it, so you can't see in the bottom of the bowl and kind of go, what is, what's that? What's that in the bottom center?
So
So,
tell me about you mentioned two bestsellers that
yeah.
you've written. You want to share a bit about like one of those books or
Well, I mean, all those studies are from
oh,
the
very good.
mindless eating. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then what it was a collection of of how these things around us trick us and what we can do. And then the second
Cool.
book took all those and said, how can the institutions around us that how can they change things so that we shop better in grocery stores, that we order better in restaurants, so that we just don't get fat and out of shape at work. How can our school lunchrooms be set up in a way that gets kids to volitionally choose the healthier thing and think they're having a great meal?
If you were given a stage and a microphone with the masses in front of you, a million people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you had to speak in a language that like would reach all these people, which you've done with your books, obviously. How would you communicate the essence of the philosophy of the book, which I imagine matches the title, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the one for mindless eating is that uh, you won't want to. The best diet is a diet you don't know you're on. Just change your environment so that you naturally eat less and eat better. Instead of trying to say, must not eat the candy on the corner of my desk. Well, guess what? You're going to eat 40% less candy if you put that same candy bowl in one of your desk drawers. It's still going to be an arm's length away from you, but because you don't see it, you're not going to worry about it. The second book, Slim by Design, is simply it's easier to change your environment than to fight it. Okay, it's easier to change your environment than to change your mind. If you're a school food service cafeteria, instead of trying to make kids take classes on why they should choose an apple rather than a cookie, it's a whole lot easier if you just put apples first in line and kids see it. It's a whole lot easier if you cut those apples up, if you put a light over them, if you name them where they're from, like Michigan crispy apples or whatever it would be. Then if you kind of just lecture people to pass the nutrition quiz. And typically when I give these talks, I'll show videos of people doing this sort of stuff, and it's pretty eye-opening, I think, to audiences.
It's just being a lot more intentional with with visuals on food, like to boil it down.
Yes, yeah, and that's yeah, and yeah, yes, exactly. Not just the visuals, but also all these other. So we did a study.
Sorry, not just the visuals, I should say, but that's like, I mean, from a very basic standpoint, just thinking about like practical application, people can just think about what food are we seeing?
Yeah, no, that's true. So we did. I just got back about an hour ago from eating at a Chinese buffet, and
Oh,
people
nice.
Chinese buffets. Oh my God, buffets! There's something in the world worse for you. And you kind of go, really? Well, why is it that a third of the people you see at Chinese buffets are really skinny? If buffets make you fat, why didn't it work for them? And people are, of course, less speechless. And we thought, well, let's check it out. So we did a study where we went to Chinese buffets in like 8 or 9 different states across the U.S. And we observed people, and we figured a way to. We took the third of the people who were heaviest and the third of the people who were lightest, and we said, what are they doing that might explain why they're both in buffets, but these people are skinny and these people are heavy. And we had kind of these secret coders, who was basically my lab, who'd be sitting in a booth or at a table, pretending like they're eating, but really they just have all these different coding sheets. And they'd code, like when people came in, how many people they're eating with, where they sat, how they maneuvered the buffet, all these things. We found that there were like 6 or 7 things that skinny people did significantly different than heavy people. Like on average, they sat like about 14 feet farther away from the buffet. Okay, skinny people did. They were about 3 times as likely to face away from the food, whereas heavy people tended to face it and kind of. And every time you see somebody go up there, you're like, oh man, everybody's going to the buffet. Maybe I should go up another time. Skinny people were more likely to use chopsticks. They're much more likely, almost 3 times as likely to, if was a choice of plate sizes, they're almost 3 times likely to take the smaller plate when they went up there, when they went there. They're also about 70% of skinny people scouted out the buffet before they even picked up a plate. And then they look around, oh yeah, then they pick up a plate and serve themselves the favorite foods they had seen. Heavy people, on the other hand, about 60% of heavy people would just pick up the plate and start with the first thing in line. Do I want that or don't I want it? Maybe not. What about this one? And so
Interesting.
yeah. And the thing is, after these people were finished eating, we would intercept them in the parking lot and say, hey, we noticed that you did things like, this, and this. We'd have their scorecard right here. We noticed that you kind of scouted out the buffet you picked up before you picked up a plate. Why'd you do that? They go, I don't know. It's just kind of what I do. Oh, and we noticed you sat kind of far away from the. Well, why did you sit closer? You would have saved yourself walking and stuff. You go, I don't know. Why did you sit in a booth and not in a table? Well, I guess I just like booths. And so people, almost to a person, weren't aware of why they did what they did, but because somehow or another they had developed that habit, it correlated really highly with them not
Let's
being
break down that. Let's break down that psychology quick, right? Somebody who surveys the entire buffet first is eating with the expectations of like a limited capacity,
very possibly. Yeah.
because they know they're going to make their decisions based, like I'm this is just a question, but I wonder if it's they're basing their choice with the knowledge that they have a certain capacity, and maybe it's their lifestyle at this point, so it's not thought of as a diet. It's just
Yep.
this is how they roll.
The best diet's the one you don't know you're on.
Exactly. And here
Yeah,
around the mountain we
yeah,
go.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. And that could also explain the small plate. It can
Yeah.
also,
It
and
also it really struck me like um the concept of somebody sitting near the buffet, and you said to me, I think if I understood it properly, that they watch other people go up too, right?
yeah, and so it seems very normative to be going up all the time because they're seeing people go up, and even though they're different people, all they code is that people are eating my gazelle. I got to get up there and
Yeah.
eat my gazelle
It's
before.
also it's an addict's reaction too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like it's also like a scarcity thing, right? It could be guarding a certain dish or something.
yeah.
No?
I think that's why it's really. I tell my daughters, scout out the buffet before you pick up the plate, even if you think you know what you want to do. Just scout out because it's what skinny people do.
Yeah.
We don't, whether it's causal or not, that's not what we prove. We just prove that it's
You just
highly
give them
correlated.
the base neurology. Here's what you do. Here's the
Yeah,
action.
that's right. That's right. If you want it, here's play the odds and
Now,
sit in
not
the far corner,
yeah, far corner, face away from the food. Do not
face
face
away
the
from the
food.
food.
Now, what this is like, not trying to go to like the trend setting here, but like, did your research yield any useful data in regards to people who are already struggling by sitting near the buffet? Like, can they just adopt these habits to some extent? Or like, is there any like, did you get any insight you could share regarding how to live a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we would tell people. Would say, if you want to be skinny, you do what skinny people do. You don't do what heavy people do and think you're going to be different. Just play the odds. If you want to be skinny, you do what skinny people do. If you eat on average 22% less from a 9.5 inch plate than a 10.5 inch plate, don't use 10.5 inch plates. Don't say, good, now that I know that, I won't eat as much. No, just use a smaller plate. Make it mindless to do these things.
Man, I almost feel like getting a measuring tape and showing you the size of the plates that we're eating off of. It would fill the whole screen.
They look like chargers. Yeah, yeah. No, we well sometimes we'll use those for like we have people over for dinners and stuff, but never for everyday use. And even most of the ones we use for dinners are my grandma's plates, which are the 9.25 inch, 9.5 inch plates.
I'm going to go and measure my plates after this.
Do the conversion to centimeters or whatever.
Uh, so that might be a good note to wrap it up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes short of an hour here, but Brian, I was wondering, could we do another one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're so much fun to talk with. Yes, such great questions.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I sincerely enjoy it. I'm terribly curious, right? And I know I can keep on going on and on with people, but I well, I have to be honest with you. I have another thing booked, and that you'll see it. Another interview got rebooked that starts at 4:30 too. So
Yeah. Well, that's
I'm getting
cool.
lined up for one day, one time.
as as of now, I'm the second best interview at least, right?
You are the second best interview. Absolutely. Hey, are you gonna do you have any future? So you're doing this music thing. I want to close on your current things.
Okay. Well, there's two current
Yeah,
things.
please.
The real thing is um, I'm doing this. I'm working on a project called Crucial Breakthroughs, which looks at what breakthroughs people had in their life that made the biggest impact on them subsequently being able to go on and really thrive in life. So I've interviewed probably over 1,000 people and then surveys, either surveyed or interviewed over 1,000 people to break down those ideas of what types of things did people do, what went right, what went wrong, what got them unstuck when they're really, really unstuck or really in despair. And so I'm doing that, and I hope to have that published in next year.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. And then the secondary thing is this makingmusicfun.org. And it's just God, it just
Holy smokes. The crucial breakthroughs thing is next talk.
cool. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Okay, let's do it soon. Like
All right.
because I want to hit on that. I'll leave people, whoever listens to this, leave them on a cliffhanger. Leave them on next we'll tell you how to reconstruct your life. Yeah, that's it, with crucial breakthroughs.
All right, buddy. Good. Good to see you.
Hey, it was a pleasure, Brian. Thank you very much. And we'll talk soon.
Excellent. All right.
Okay, cheers.